Welcome to 5 tips for motivating yourself to learn an instrument. These tips would work regardless of whether you're self-taught or have a teacher, and regardless of the instrument you're learning. So it could be piano, guitar, or pretty much anything. I personally play piano, so that's where my personal experiences come from. And I'll get right to it. And my first tip to you is to eliminate guilt. Now, how many times have you heard someone tell you that if you really love playing piano, you should be doing it 24/7, or you should be, it should be impossible for you to stop playing? And to those people, I say that's a load of hogwash. Basically, these people are either being, one, disingenuous, or two, they've basically overwritten that part of their memory that has to do with all of the anguish that learning an instrument entails. And yes, you have to admit to yourself that learning an instrument is hard. It's not all about fun, and actually a lot of the time it's not about fun. Now, you can guilt yourself into playing your instrument. You can basically make yourself feel guilty, or so guilty that you're going to have to sit down and practice. But in my opinion, that's a really poor way of learning an instrument. You don't really want to tie your success to a negative feeling. I mean, you could also pay someone to beat you up if you don't practice, right? But that's not something that you should aspire to. And beyond that, I would say that guilt is not a good motivator with a lot of people. With some people, actually it works, but those are probably the people that shouldn't use it. So my first tip is really what not to do, and that is not to use guilt to motivate yourself. So if not guilt, what should you use? And this is my second tip. And my second tip is really to treat learning an instrument basically like a challenge or a project where you take baby steps and form a habit. Now, by a habit, I mean basically a routine that will get you to sit down at a fixed time a day and do a fixed amount of work. Now, it doesn't matter how much work. So it doesn't matter if you start small, practicing for 5 minutes a day. Actually, my recommendation to you is pick a really, really easy target. Pick the least amount of time that you feel confident that you would actually sit down and practice. And basically, make sure that you stick with it for, let's say, 3 to 4 weeks. Now, the reason I say 3 to 4 weeks is that, there's sort of a rule of thumb that says that if you stick to something for, a certain number of weeks, say 3 to 4 weeks, then it becomes a habit. It's not universal. Some people need more time, some people need less time. But the point is basically to trick yourself into forming a routine, a habit. And to do this by picking a really easy goal. Like I said, practice for, 10 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day. It doesn't matter how long. It should be actually even easier than what you think is easy for you. So if you think, hey, I could practice an hour a day, practice half an hour a day. Make that your goal and make sure you stick with it for at least a few weeks. Once you've formed the habit, then you can slowly increase the amount of practice that you put into the instrument. So habits are a lot better and are a lot more effective at getting you to do something consistently than guilt. So that's my second tip. My third tip is to find 4 types of people in your life, your musical life. A partner, a rival, a mirror or a critic, let's call it, and a goal or someone to aspire to. Now, these don't have to be different people. Some of these can be the same person. And I'll tell you what the roles of each of them what their role is. So a partner is someone you practice with, and that's sort of just like when you go to a gym, it's always good to have someone to go to the gym with. That's the person that you basically say, okay, today I'm going to practice. We're going to practice this piece and you're going to practice that piece, and then we'll meet and exchange experiences or talk about things. So a partner doesn't have to be someone who actually practices with you or next to you, but it should be someone who goes through the same experience, so you can share experiences and hardships and talk between yourselves. So if you're learning piano, this other partner could be someone learning guitar. Just have someone that's learning as well and that you can talk with. A rival, on the other hand, is someone you sort of see as your equal and with or against whom you can compare yourself. So having a rival, of course not a serious rival, just like a friendly rivalry, can be a really, really good motivator. Now, I'd say be a little bit careful with this, because just like guilt, rivalry can become a little bit toxic. So if you feel like having a rival can be detrimental or can put you under a lot of stress, then you should think about whether you actually want to find one. But the point is that it does put you under a little bit of stress, which is a good thing. And it motivates you. It gets you to meet up with someone in a friendly environment and sort of trade, see how well he's doing, how well you're doing, compare and sort of, at some points he'll be better than you, you'll be better than him or her, of course. And that really, really drives you forward. Having a really good sort of someone that you can have a friendly rivalry with. Now, the third role is that of a critic or a mirror, and that's basically someone, that's not someone who tells you you suck, go home. This is someone who gives you feedback gradually over your musical career, hopefully, about how well you're doing. So this is someone who is not afraid to tell you this doesn't sound good or this sounds good. By the way, a critic shouldn't always be negative. Critics should also say positive things. Now, usually if you have a teacher, the teacher will fulfill the role of the critic. But it doesn't have to be a teacher. It can also be someone that, another musician who will listen to you play. You can meet up with him or her once every week, once every few weeks, or this could be, basically anyone whose opinions you value and trust. And if you can't find a critic, if you can't find someone like that, you can be your own critic. It's not as effective because we tend to distort our own reality. Now, to circumvent that, what you should do is you should record yourself. So once a week, take your cell phone, record yourself performing your pieces, whatever they may be, whatever you're working on, and then sit down and listen to how you've progressed over the past, compared to last week's recording, or maybe to the recording a month before that, and get a sense of whether you're improving or not. Finally, the last type of person you should try to find, and this one is really tricky, is basically a goal, someone to aspire to become like. Now, most of us have goals whom we do not know. For me, one of my lifelong goals is a piano player by the name of Lyle Mays, who used to play really piano with in the Pat Metini group, and unfortunately who no longer really plays piano professionally. He's gone into software engineering. So many cases, these would be musicians that you're not in rivalry with. You acknowledge that they've reached like the peak of their field, and these are people that you'd like to emulate, that you'd like to be like. So it's very important that you find these 4 different types of people. Now, a partner can also be a rival, or a teacher who is a critic or mirror can also be a goal. You could idolize your teacher. If I were to go and study with Lyle Mays, then he would also be my goal and my teacher, my critic. So some of us, sometimes you get lucky and you get 2 for 1 or even 3 for 1. I don't think you can get 4 for 1. I don't think such a person exists, simply because some of these are contradictory. Right? A goal cannot be a partner or a rival. My fourth tip is to go to as many live shows as you can. I know that with the advent of music recordings, we don't go to as many live shows as we would have in the past, but I highly, highly recommend that you set up a routine whereby you go as often as you can. If you can go once a week, go once a week. If there's like a bar nearby with bands, then go to the bar. Unfortunately, live shows cost money, so I know this is going to be a bottleneck for a lot of you, but make sure that you do invest in this. And the reason you invest in this is that when you go to a good live show, this is one of the greatest motivators there is. Every time I come back from a great show, I am highly motivated. I sit down and I play. It's not forced in any way. It just makes you want to practice and it makes you want to get better. It's nothing deep about it. Seeing good musicians perform gets you going. That's as simple as it is. The flip side of this is you should perform. Now, if you're good enough to perform in like real live venues, then you probably shouldn't be listening to this video. Perform and get paid for this. But there are things that aren't necessarily like large venues, paid gigs that you can do. First of all, you can perform for people that you like and hopefully who like you. They might not like you as much once you're done, but that's okay. That's your relationship. If you have a boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, husband, friends, maybe a deaf grandmother, that would be the best. So anyone you can perform to and who would appreciate it and who would like to help you. The other sort of performances that you should try and get into is playing with other people. Sort of just meeting up with other people and trying to play a piece together, practice a piece together, and then maybe form a duo or a trio or a band and see if you can go and perform in like local pubs. There are lots of local pubs or small venues that would let you perform there, not for a fee. And that's fine. You bring your own crowd, you bring your family, your friends, they buy drinks to the place, so everybody is happy. You get to perform, the venue gets free drinks, and and that's it. And having to perform, having to actually get up in front of an audience and practice your craft is another fantastic motivator. Even if you have, I know a lot of people have a fear of crowds, a fear of speaking, so even if you have this sort of fear, then it would still make sense for you to set a performance, because especially if you're in a band, you can sort of hide, quote unquote, behind your other band members. So it doesn't feel as intimidating as going up like solo and playing as a solo player in front of an audience. So live shows, listen to them, and if you can, actually perform them. And finally, my last motivational tip to get you to stick to your playing and improve it is to journal your progress. And this can come in 2 ways. So one of them I've already mentioned in tip number 3, and that is you can record yourself. And you should do this even if you have a critic, even if you have someone, a human being who gives you feedback about your progress. The other point of journaling your progress is to keep a very, very meticulous game plan. Now remember I spoke about building a habit in tip number 2, where basically you said, okay, so for 4 weeks I'm gonna every day practice for 10 minutes. But then you have to have a game plan once you form the habit of how you slowly increase the amount of time you spend practicing. You don't want to do it too fast, but you want to build up a journal or build up a chart at least that says, okay, so for the next week I'm going to practice 15 minutes a day, and for the week after that I'm going to practice 20 minutes a day, and then for the week after that 25 minutes a day, and slowly build up the amount of time you practice. The other thing that you should write down in your journal, and write it down before you practice it, is what exactly you are going to practice. So don't just sit down in front of a piano or an instrument and once you sit down, start thinking, what am I going to do today? No, come in with a game plan. Look at your journal and say, okay, I see that today I've written down that I'm going to practice for 25 minutes, and I'm going to do 10 minutes of like finger exercises, like hand on the piano or whatever it is that you have, like shredding exercises on the guitar, or just regular working on your basic beats on the drums. And then for 15 minutes I'm going to practice this song I want to play. So basically have this game plan, have a journal that shows your progress. Not only record your progress, but also when you open it, tells you what exactly you need to do. And again, this has to do with eliminating guilt. Once you eliminate guilt, you have to ask, what am I going to use instead? And what you're going to use instead is your habits and a game plan, a journal. So these are my 5 motivational tips. They've served me well while learning piano growing up, and I really hope they help you out. And again, they can be applied regardless of your instrument, and I actually think that they can also be applied outside of just learning an instrument, but to many different walks of life, to other skills and crafts, and I guess to other life goals as well. That's it. I hope you've learned something interesting, and I'll see you next time.